Hello, Straight Talk audience. This is AI Gonzalo Lira, and this is Straight Talk, Cyber Cafe Edition.
Hey, what's up, guys? How you doing? Welcome to another edition of the Liberty Report with Professor Red Pill and Adam Maxwell from the Liberty Rising Group. Today, we're going to be discussing the further series of dystopian future. The question or the topic of the day for my channel is the American Empire crumbling? Let's dive into it. Adam, take it away.
Yeah, and thank you, audience, for tuning in on the 10th of September, 2025. Today, we're going to be discussing things and happenings with Collapse 2025. It's been quite an eventful week and also, not really too much. Big things that are going on. There was a big EU speech with some developments from the Politburo, Ursula von der Leyen or something. We might cover some of that. We will. The State of the Union, State of the European Soviet Union address. There was a unprovoked, unilateral, unlawful airstrike by the chosen nation against Qatar, to which apparently has not been very, very successful. This appears to be an instance of the tail wagging the dog in terms of the diplomacy of the United States of America. Maybe we can go into that, but I personally think the biggest, most impactful event the past week was the brutal murder of Ukrainian refugee Irina on the North Carolina Metro tram line by a 14 times convicted violent criminal thug who just murdered this woman because she was a white girl. It's truly horrific footage. It's had a massive impact. It's been mentioned every social media. I've seen it on X, all over Telegram, even LinkedIn. It's like the #1 story right now. Trump's talking about it. Anyone's talking about it. It's been radicalizing. It's been horrific. To me, this is the big event, Collapse 2025, and it's emblematic of the past however many years. I mean, it's September 11th tomorrow, so let's call it 24 years of this liberal democracy hyper-accelerated period. But really, we could go all the way back to the 3rd of September, 1939, maybe. Professor, take it away.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the thing is, like I said, in this series, that we've been talking about is dystopian futures. I mean, breaking it down, like my opening argument or opening statement is, basically, we have three empires in question that I'm going to kind of refer to: the Roman Empire, the Russian Empire, and the British Empire, and then now the American Empire. So when we look at post-World War I, that was the collapse of the Russian Empire, became the Soviet Union. Post-World War II, the collapse of the British Empire, and then now we're in World War III. We are in World War III. It is a proxy conflict. It's similar in a lot of ways to World War II, because World War II started with a bunch of border clashes and smaller conflicts, trade wars, currency wars, and eventually segue into a bigger war. So my predictions for collapse, hashtag collapse 2025, that I've been predicting for onwards maybe a decade, since 2014, heavily in the last 3 years. I've been saying that towards the end of 2025 or in 2025, we're going to start seeing a lot of smaller countries or regional empires, or even smaller and more or less significant countries start fighting over resources. Especially when USA gets cut off, you're going to see a lot of civil unrest. conflicts between each other, and we've seen this between Ukraine and Russia that's been ongoing. We saw a conflict arise between Israel and Gaza, and then it segue, as I said, it would turn into a regional conflict between Israel and Iran, which has occurred in 2025. Then I said there would be, or not said there would be, but I basically said there would be continued conflicts. So we have recently in Thailand, we had Thailand and who are the Vietnam? Or no, it was Thailand and Laos, right?
Myanmar, I believe.
Myanmar, okay. And then South America, we had Uruguay. Was it Uruguay and Argentina, or was it Uruguay and Uruguay and Argentina, I believe, right?
I don't think Argentina's at war.
Not Argentina, but Uruguay and
Venezuela, Guyana,
yeah,
French Guyana.
Yeah.
There's a thing going on there.
So that was a lot of these have been over energy issues, energy crisis, and like it is what it is. There's Armenia and Azerbaijan. I mean Pakistan, India. That I think I mentioned that. And like I said, this is just the beginning. This is gonna continue to grow, and like I said, right now the regional conflicts, they've been brewing for a while. We have Taiwan and China. So I mean, like I said, these will stay regional for a while. I think until we're in the collapse right now. We're beginning stages of this dystopian future. We're heading into a dark ages, a technocracy. The United States is. I predicted that there would be a major correction here in the fall. 60 to 70% correction coming in the housing, financial markets, and energy markets. Said this 2 years ago. If that doesn't happen, most likely it's going to be a slower burn, and it's going to continue to decline into chaos, into possible global major conflicts. But the situation is, I believe we're headed into like we're in a collapse right now, sociologically, geopolitically, as well as financially, economically. You can see it in like Georgia right now. I think there's a post that came out. I posted in the Telegram group. They had a negative 15% reduction in financial market here in last quarter, which I predicted and said would happen. And this is parallel to a year ago, same thing happened. We didn't have a very good tourist season here, and like it represents a small minority of the economy now, because the country, the economy here is quite diversified between energy exports and other types of stuff that they have now. But the reality is that like we're in a global recession. We're in the cusp of it at this point, and these conflicts are going to continue to ensue because it's affecting the developing worlds more so than the post-industrial Western countries. And it's also starting to affect regional empires like China, Russia, and EU, and also African countries where there were civil unrest and conflicts there as well recently, and the Middle East. Basically, now the GCC, for the first time ever, is being attacked by a sovereign territory, Israel. We haven't had that before, have we? Since like
70s? Desert Storm.
Yeah. I mean, it's a long time, and like I said, Desert Storm was
Iran.
Kuwait.
There was an attack. There was an attack from Iran to Saudi Arabia, like a small one, a few years ago. Very small. I mean, what Israel just did was unprovoked act of aggression against Qatar. They say, "Oh, it's against Hamas." It's like, yeah. Why did you do that? Oh, because we don't want peace. We want war. Right. Okay, well, that's pretty rogue criminal. Fair enough. Like, you are at war. Iran made a statement a few weeks ago, and it's true. We had a ceasefire. We're still at war. It's still a conflict. It's going to flare up again. We're not at peace.
It's cold. It's cold. It's a warm or cold conflict right now. Yeah.
So for Israel, that they don't care about the law. The law is for the goyim, for the nations of the world. We are the chosen nation. We don't have to abide by international law. What's international law? We can strike anywhere. I think it was either a British rabbi or maybe an ambassador. He was on the news today saying, look, if you were involved in October 7th, we will hunt you down. It doesn't matter where you are. You could be in Israel, Gaza, in Iran, in Yemen. You could be in Qatar. You could be in England, and we will come for you. And it's like, okay, like on one hand, pretty based. On the other hand, when do you think Israel's going to start getting hit? Hit. You know, they've already been hit by Iran. They've been hit by Yemen. They've been hit all over. They're not invincible. Certainly, they're outnumbered. Logistically, they're not, you know, winning. It's pretty foolish. It's pretty belligerent and maybe foolish behavior. But you have to recognize and understand that the Israeli conception is we are at war, push for war, push, and America will join in. We will have the West on our side, which, you know, is arguable, or maybe even skeptical. But they are the primary aggressor pushing for the wars, and you can say that's a structural requirement. You can talk about whether it's the right thing to do. Certainly, you know, my political persuasion is Zionist, but hypercritical of the state of Israel. You know, on one hand, at the founding, they say, you know, we're going to have to live with a sword in one hand. On the other hand, they did say, if we become a pariah and the entire world is against us, we will never succeed. So, you know, I do believe they're a criminal regime. It's kind of their thing, but it doesn't have to be like they're doing, certainly. Just to build on what Professor was saying, the past 35 years, especially since the fall of the Soviet Union, has been what's termed as the unipolar moment. Pax Americana. Pax means like the time of the reign. So we had Pax Romana, the Roman hegemony. Pax Britannia, British hegemony. The Russians, it was never Pax Russia, but like they came pretty close. Turn of the 1900. If they would have been allowed to have the Balkans, been allowed into Constantinople, Istanbul, if they, you know, if the British didn't say we're going to stop you so that we can have the Islamists and Ottomans in power, if the British didn't intervene, the Russians may have been very, very, very powerful, and communism may have never happened. So Pax Americana is dead. Unipolar moment, America's abused it. Rather than do something great as the undisputed leaders of the world, they laundered all the money. They went around the world manufacturing conflicts, bombing shithole countries, starting war after war after war, funneling money into their military-industrial complex, wars of aggression, and they stretched themselves thin. If you look at the federal debt of the USA, which is insane, all of that is military spending. You can say, well, it's also social services and things, which are, you know, is part of the liberal decivilization process. Liberal democracy or democratic republicanism. But America has abused its position as the leader of the world, and as a result, everyone's suffering, and all these smaller conflicts, because the world's not at harmony, the world's not at peace. Armenia, Azerbaijan, they've had this problem over these territories for years and years and years. But with all the distraction, with the war in Ukraine that America and Britain and the European capitals manufactured, everyone's distracted. Azerbaijan had the advantage over Armenia, and they hit. What's going on in Venezuela right now? America's saying, look, oil with Russia, we were going to sanction India, maybe we need more oil. Let's try and manufacture the conditions that maybe we can go into Venezuela. Now, I don't know if they're going to do that or not, but they've stretched themselves thin, and so these underlying conflicts or fundamental conflicts are able to start boiling up. And, you know, if someone tried this in 1995, it's all that, say, America could step in with their leadership and put a stop to it. Now they don't have that power today. And we're in this liminal space where we don't have a unipolar hegemon. We don't, you know, a very strong leader of the world, but we're not yet into this multipolar order where polycentric, where law can come in. So it's a period of international lawlessness, a chaotic anarchy, and there's a lot of pain and suffering. And what makes it worse is this is not just international. I know Professor talked about how it's affecting the developing world more so than post-industrial countries. But in our Western post-industrial countries, they're committing a cultural civilizational suicide. And so things are being ruinous at home as well. And this is really one of the great tragedies.
Yeah. Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah. Another wonderful secret, I guess, is I love this train story because it reinforces all of my bigotry. Also, it distracts from the insane birthday card that my felon hero sent to infamous PDFS offender Jeffrey Epstein. Interesting.
So, I mean, of course, we hate this train story. It's awful. Anyone that's watched that footage, on my channel, I posted the full 18-minute footage. You stare at it, you watch especially the last 7 minutes. It is horrendous. It is just awful. You stare at it, you watch it, and you don't smile after for some time. And you're just like, how could this be allowed to occur in the most developed nation on earth? It's sickening. But so too is the Jeffrey Epstein crap, which is permitted by the state. You look at how this 14 times serial violent offender was released from prison, maybe cashless bail, certainly on bail. Why? Because this judge who never even, I am more qualified a lawyer than the judge who let this person out to go and murder this white girl for being a white girl. That's not speculation. He says, I got that white girl. I got that white girl. So it's very incensing. It's very radicalizing. It's terrible. Like everyone that has actually watched this, like, well, there's two things here. One, everyone decent has said how terrible this is. But I've also seen now selection bias, but because people have been highlighting it. But I've seen a number of black influencers. I've seen someone laughing at this girl. I've seen people on Twitter of who are not white saying, deserved it, and haha, we got you back for George Floyd. Now I don't know if this is people trolling, photoshopping this. I don't know the sentiment, but to see any of that is just disgusting. This is a beautiful young girl, 23 years old, murdered in cold blood. And
not only that, she was on her way. She was on her way to work, or away from coming home from work after a long day working. She's an immigrant that's taking a job, not as on welfare, and the individual that decided to kill her has no job, is a burden to the welfare system, most likely, and I'm speculating on that, of course, but basically is just the vow of our of this society. So I'm not saying to cast away, and before this happened, of course. Now it's like, yeah, dude, just whatever. I mean, like I said, you still get your day in court, but we know without a shadow of doubt he did it in malice. It is what it is. But like before this happened, I mean, could have probably been reached, could have probably, prevented this, but under the current social policies of that particular city and the ongoing woke economics and woke agendas of the society that the United States, people that live there, it's just there's nothing you can do anymore. It's just, like I said, this is the question that we're invoking: is the American empire crumbling? Socially, economically, all the above. I've left the United States. I don't live in the United States anymore. I've immigrated to Republic of Georgia, to the country of Georgia, and we don't have these problems here. We just don't have these issues. We do not have people just stabbing people randomly on metros, throwing people like in EU or like, in parts of America, just throwing innocent bystanders onto the tracks to kill them without any malice or any type of reason to do so. which I don't even know why you would have a reason to do so, but just doing it out of just for, hey, let's do it. We don't have these. We don't have these problems here, which is why I'm here and why I don't plan on going back to the United States. I've emigrated here. Like, I'm a permanent resident on my way to citizenship. And I may not return back to the United States if it doesn't change. Ever again.
I think that these people, 14 times he's been arrested for violent crime. Oh, 14 times he's been arrested. I've seen 14 mugshots. I believe most of them are violent crime. I don't know that for certain. But he's pure evil, and he must be physically removed from any civilized society. Probably killed. Go to court. But I think he should be dead within 2 weeks, unless you want to drag out the pain and suffering. But this is just one of the worst things ever. To imagine if that was your daughter, imagine if that was your friend, imagine if that was you. What do you take away from it? That democratic governance has failed, right? Specifically, I'm talking about left-wing Democrat. Right. I talk often about democracy, and this is maybe a function of it, but this is specifically left-wing Democrat, George Soros type rule. This judge who never passed the bar, as far as I know, hasn't gone to law school, is a member of a non-government organization where she's getting like 10% of the money that's promoting trying to get these people out of prison. It's disgustingly self-interested and DEI, right? I don't think I would be qualified to be a judge like her, unless maybe I'm black. Then, give me the position, give me the money, give me hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's just so sick what's occurred today. Not today, this past week. It's terrible. Yeah. And again, the images. Another wonderful secret, just at the end, you say, this one needs to be talked about for many days. This needs to be talked. I mean, George Floyd, right? Career criminal, overdosed on fentanyl, caught, committing crimes. Then he resisted the police. Like, Chauvin, I don't care about him because he's a system pig. So, throw the book at him, even if he didn't deserve it, even if it was an injustice against him in this instance. But George Floyd, they're still talking about him 5 years later. This innocent Ukrainian refugee who fled a war zone.
Why are we still talking?
Invasion.
You talking about George Floyd? George Floyd? Why are we still talking about him? Isn't this over yet? I mean, Epstein or George Floyd Epstein. Okay, never mind. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Like, I pin whatever I pin on my Telegram channel. This is one of those pictures that is there, shall remain pinned. It is so radical. You look at the image, you look at the horror. It is just, you read into the story, but even just at a glance, you just look at it and you say, oh my goodness, how could this be allowed to occur? How did this occur? What do we take away from this? How do we as a people, as a society, as an individual, what went wrong? And a lot's gone wrong to enable this state of affairs.
Yeah. I mean, it's like it's crumbling. Like I said, as I predicted, you're going to see, I hate being right all the time, especially in this situation. I just, like I said, like I predicted, I talked about it, we talked about it, and you can see it in the data, as a sociologist, as a leadership expert. I mean, you could just see that there's just no leadership, and a lack of leadership is creating hard times. We've had a lack of leadership for 60 odd years, probably since post-World War II, and not just the United States, but all over the world. Very small pockets of good leadership, like maybe Georgia, for instance. We've had some really solid leaders that came around after the Soviet Union collapse. This is one of the only, one of the very few post-Soviet countries that actually had decent leadership come in. We don't really have democracy, so to speak. We have a representative government here. Parliamentary government with a constitution. Similarly, it was shaped after the United States Constitution from the founding fathers. Is a very libertarian state, anarcho-capitalist state. And you can see the fact that this country is, I know we get too far in the tangent. You guys know, I talk about it all the time, why I came here. Argentina's going through this transition as well. And I talked, we had people on here, Mario, who's from Argentina, and we have a lot of Argentinians that have come on the podcast that are in our group. and regular contributors. And like I said, I'm like, dude, 10, 15 years, you're going to be like Republic of Georgia. And the thing is, you guys are a bigger country. You have a lot more land mass. You have a lot of agriculture, a lot of resources that which Georgia does not have. So who knows? Who knows how great Argentina is going to be, especially being so close to the United States with ports and stuff. I mean, but like I said, the United States is declining. I mean, that's the question we're invoking: is American empire crumbling? I say yes, most definitely. Yeah.
Just quickly, Argentina used to be the richest country in South America, maybe even
Correct.
wider than that.
And the Americas, it was one of the richest in the Americas as well. Yeah, of course.
And then 70 years of socialism. On leadership,
Yeah.
you look at the footage. Now, I've had some first aid training. I've had some medical training. Not so well, I'm not a doctor or a nurse or anything, but and I don't live in North Carolina. A lot of people turn this into a racial issue, and it is a racial issue. Let's not mitigate that. But if you look at the 18-minute footage,
before you get into that, the first issue is that it's a policy issue, a leadership issue, a policy issue, then a crime issue, then it's a racial. And like I said, it does not have to be a racial issue. It's a failure of leadership and ongoing policies from the boomer generation, from the Civil Rights Act of 1964 onward, which, MLK was like, dude, we had the Civil Rights Act for a reason, because, MLK was like, dude, we should be judged by our character, not by what the traits that we were born with. And I wholeheartedly believe that. I just don't think that the boomers nor leadership that we have in power to date understands that or even believes in that at all. It's if I were to encompass, before you get into the what you're going to discuss with us, I would invoke and say that the boomer generation, the leadership that's in power right now in the United States, EU, and across the planet, they don't believe in that in the particular sense. They believe in you should be judged by how much money is in your bank account and who you are connected to and who you are mentored or politically aligned with.
You've got this credentialism plus gay race communism.
Correct. That's more or less what's up. But continue with what you're going to talk
about. And money makes the world go round. Right, I was going to say this absolutely is a racial issue, and no one can minimize that. But you look at the 18-minute footage, there's a couple of white guys right in front of her when she was stabbed. And like one guy, the door's open, he takes his bike, he walks off. The other guy goes, "Oh, there's a lot of blood. He's got a knife. Oh, dang." Right. So, there are some terrible white people in the world. There are some terrible black people in the world. There's some very good black people. There's some very good white people. As Professor just said, it's not that all of everyone are good or bad. But what I wanted to really talk about is, you said, I think, did you say it's policy, leadership, racial? Was that your hierarchy?
Yeah,
there?
It's actually leadership, policy, then racial, because the racial element is because of the policy and the ineffectiveness of the leadership. That's the reality. It all stems from leadership.
That's what I was going to say. Listen, if I was that white individual in front of this girl, it seems as though she was brutally murdered, stabbed 3 times or so, and died pretty instantly. I mean, you can see her on the floor, writhing around, but seems pretty helpless. But when someone finally stepped in, and this is a person of color, I don't know if he was black or not quite exactly, but he was the first person to step in. He had no idea what to do. Now, I'm not criticizing him individually. Like, he was the person who jumped in after 2 or 3 minutes.
He's a good Samaritan.
Comes onto the train, sees this girl dead, and he's trying to help. Again, it's just horrendous footage. It's traumatizing. But so again, it seems that there was not much anyone could have done. But I was watching the footage.
Not at the rate. Yeah, after seeing it at the rate that I saw, that like she was, the amount of blood that was coming out. He hit a major artery. She was dead within, I don't know, like maybe a minute, less than a minute. There's nothing you could have did.
Nothing you could have done. But
the guy knew what he was doing. He
The
premeditated
career
what he
criminal.
was doing. Yeah, he knew exactly what he was doing. It was premeditated. And
Premeditated.
premeditation under under the doctrine of the mens rea, premeditated is death. If you from the federal standpoint, DOJ, it's
Yeah, I
death
hope
penalty.
so. And
The federal government still uses death penalty for federal cases,
and
and
this
it
federal
seems like,
charge, it
yeah, and
seems.
they brought
In
federal
fact,
charges against him. So
Trump Trump said,
he's looking at yeah.
I think in Trump's statement, he said death.
Yeah.
Pretty sure.
And the thing
Let me
is
pull
too
that
is like the DOJ has a conviction rate of 99.2%.
This is what Trump tweeted or Truth Socialed. The animal, all caps, the animal who so violently killed the beautiful young lady from Ukraine who came to America searching for peace and safety should be given a quick, there is no doubt, trial and only awarded, all caps, the death penalty. There can be no other option. President Donald J. Trump. I agree completely. What the point I was trying to get to, just quickly, and maybe we can move on from here, because
Yeah.
I mean,
We
blood
have a couple
pressure.
things else to cover. Yeah.
If you were in this situation, and maybe it wasn't so severe, like terrible, but if you were one of that person, one of the people sitting next to her, or the other side of the bus lane, or in front of her, is there something that you could have done? Is there some knowledge that, okay, she's bleeding from her neck, let's sit her up, let's put pressure on the wound, let's stuff the wound, try and stop the bleeding? I mean, very difficult to do anything with a murder so brutal. Again, she was dead within minutes, maybe even less. Very little
I would say
done, but individually, I mean, it's such an atomized society. Just everyone's just like, I'm just going to get up and walk away, and no one even was like, "Oh my God, look at this! There's so much blood. Someone call for help." It was just terrible.
I mean, the thing is a lot of people aren't paying attention. That's the reason why he took advantage of the situation, premeditatedly. And as far as I don't think it could have been prevented in that under the circumstances, because people are kind of like on their cell phone. They're commuting to get home like she was. So I don't think anybody could have intervened, especially with someone wielding a knife. And
but he walked away.
As dangerous as he is,
dangerous thug.
These type of people are very dangerous. They're animals. So yeah, I don't necessarily see anything that anybody could have done. There's a couple of very big white guys that were there on the train that were within very close, but they were busy conversating, probably coming home from work or going somewhere. And people, like I said, you can't blame them in that sense, but people did react. But by then it was too late anyway. I mean, like, you could put pressure on it, on the wound, but like you could see from the video that blood was shooting out of the neck, which means that he had an artery. So like there's nothing you could have done. Absolutely nothing.
I'm talking about in another scenario. It was, again, we talk about on a leadership, policy, racial, but also, I'm talking about on a community level, on a social level. It's just so atomized, such a lack of empathy or of interest and of awareness as well. And I mean,
people lack situational awareness. That's the part of the hard times.
That's where I want to move on to. If I was this girl, maybe I'm doing the same thing. I got headphones in. I just pick a seat. I don't really think about it. I'm on my phone. I don't know. She looked like she was reading something. Maybe I'm sending a message. Maybe she's putting on her playlist. I don't know. I don't know what she was doing in the last seconds of her life, last minutes of her life. She could have not sat there. Now, I'm not blaming her. Tragic shouldn't happen. But with moving on from what horrendous happened, American empire crumbling, the society around you is collapsing. What can you do? You can be better aware. You can
first
have
off
training.
Is self-awareness, or like understanding your surroundings, situational awareness, understanding that when you see criminals like that, you need to just avoid those people. So you'll just wait for the next train. If it's sketchy and you see those type of individuals getting on a train or transit or anywhere, try to get out of the area as quick as possible or away from them, and don't do commerce with them. Don't interact with these individuals at all. Criminals like this. And like I said, it's pretty obvious. You can tell who's a criminal based off of how they look. Obviously, he looked like a criminal. So yeah, just avoid these people at all costs. And your supermarkets, if you're serving food, just don't serve food to them. This sort of stuff. Just kick them out of your restaurant, call the police and say that they're harassing you and they need to be removed, and get a trespass warrant. Especially in like southern states like Florida, they you can trespass warrant anybody for any reason. You don't even have to have a reason. So if you see these criminals come in, just call the police and have them trespass warrant right away. That way you can avoid these type of conflicts and liabilities. If more people did this, then I think that things would change, to be honest. Even putting signs up, police criminals don't come in here. Like, if you look like this, please, we do not serve you. Do not come in our establishment. Yeah.
Okay. Be aware, be situational. Try not to have your back to people who may pose a threat. If you have to cross the street, cross the street. If you have to give a dirty look, give a dirty look. Look, there is nothing worth compromising your security. That's why it's important that you are aware, that you're trained, what you do in emergency situations, that you take precautions. Every precaution may sound silly until you're in a situation where you look back and say, damn, if only I had taken that extra precaution. That's my philosophy. Hypervigilance is a symptom a condition I suffer from. It's a good condition. And most people are not too comfortable. They're relaxed.
Yeah. I mean, and we shouldn't have to be hypervigilant in a democracy. In a first world country, you shouldn't have to. Yeah, in a developed economy, you should not have to be vigilant at all. But unfortunately, they do. I'm in a developing economy, and you don't have to really be vigilant here. You have to be careful because there's a lot of scamming and stuff because it's a developing economy, but you don't have to be vigilant in the sense of like worrying about somebody just coming up and doing knockout games or like stabbing you in the neck when you're commuting from work or something like that. You just don't have to worry about that stuff here. Not at all. Might lose a little bit of money or get overcharged for something, but that's about it. That's the worst case scenario. White collar crimes, if that. Much better than losing your life. Losing a couple of bucks versus losing your life is a little. I would trade that off any day of the week. You can always earn more money,
Do you want to get to the question that was asked?
Yeah, we'll segue into this question. So the question coming from DC 2004, one of our avid followers. Professor, who do you think will succeed, Trump, or will America crumble before that? It's crumbling right now. And I said this before in previous podcasts that basically, regardless of who is elected, Kamala, Trump, Obama, Biden, Obama again under Biden, Obama again under Kamala. It doesn't matter. I mean, like it's collapsing anyway. It's the fiat currency that we talk about, the QE to infinity, the welfare state, the merger of corporate and state powers, i.e. 14th Amendment. These things are exactly the same things that plagued the Roman Empire and partially the British Empire. It's not like it's anything new. I mean, it's just obviously this is the end. This is the last stages of an empire. I mean, empires last 250 years on average, generally. Aside from Rome, who basically they were a republic, then they were an empire, and then they retracted, had civil wars, split the empire. There's a lot of different stuff going on. I honestly think, like I said, the British Empire is still around. It's obviously older than 250 years, but it's
the
no
Empire
longer the British Empire.
The Empire's not around. There's the Commonwealth. But
no, it's the Commonwealth. Yeah.
Over the reign of Queen Elizabeth II, it
Correct.
was systematically dismantled.
Correct.
And done so deliberately, consciously, and repeatedly against the empire. I think she was the worst monarch in recent memory, perhaps ever. A Zuma historian, a British nationalist, icon, thought leader, historian. He did a great video on Queen Elizabeth II. I don't agree with everything he says or does, and I've got problems with his historical methodology and presentation on certain things, but certainly on Queen Elizabeth II and on Churchill, he's definitely more right than wrong.
Yeah, so basically in a nutshell, like like I said, the American Empire is going to be much like the British Empire. It'll just basically what is it? Like a white dwarf. It'll just swindle out into nothingness. And I don't, like I said, because this empire is so huge and massive, there's a huge power vacuum, and who knows who's going to be able to take over as a global superpower, if we'll even have a global superpower in the future. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of regional empires that are emerging right now, like China, Russia, the BRICS, or what is it, the BRICS nations. And a lot of those are also struggling as well. So Russia's going through like economic turmoil right now, and so is China because of the American BS.
There's problems. Well, the world is not a utopia. We're hopefully advancing. In many ways, we're regressing, especially with the progressive state of technocratic advance. I mean, you say we're definitely regressing. Again, follow Liberty Rising Group on Telegram. I posted a wonderful picture of passengers aboard a French train in 1975. It looks like a utopia compared to today. Utopia. Yeah,
I mean, like I said, like I'm predicting, I don't know if we're going to have a crash. Like I said, I predicted and I said that we may see a correction. We may have already saw the correction in the first quarter where crypto took a 30% dive. Correction in the crypto market. What did the stock market? It took up a 30% dive as well, right? Correction.
I have no idea.
It did. Yeah, it was shortly thereafter. So we saw a 30% correction in the stock market, and we saw a 30% correction in the crypto market. Gold and silver took a little bit of a hit, but it regained, and it basically doubled back.
From 2000, so the Nasdaq, for example, from February it was at like 20,000. By April, it went down to almost 15,000, and now it's at 22,000. So
correct. And I predicted this would happen. So yeah, so we've already saw the correction, and we're basically that was it. That was your correction. That was due to tariffs, obviously, the Trump's tariffs.
Oh, the April 2nd Liberation Day, which he then retreated from immediately.
Correct. So that was your correction. So we're going to continue to print QE to infinity because Russia's in double digit recession or double digit inflation. Yeah, and America is probably triple digit inflation, but in reality is like at like 2 or 3%. So because we have inflation here in Georgia, you could see the inflation. It's going up quite a bit. Not as bad as America or even Russia for that extent, but it's still roughly probably 2 to 5%.
Likewise here. So yeah. Do you want to talk about? Let me read some of the highlights from Ursula von der Leyen's State of the Union address.
Sure.
2025 is Europe's independence moment, where Europe will take care of its defense and security, of technologies needed for economic development and energy. The 170 billion euros given in aid to Ukraine is not enough. More is needed. The EU will create a drone alliance with Ukraine and spend another 6 billion on this endeavor alone. The EU will create the European Defense Union, separate from NATO and funded by $800 billion. Where from? Don't worry about it. The EU will create an Eastern Flank Watch and invest in space-based surveillance and a drone wall. A drone wall will be deployed in the Baltics. We shall integrate Ukraine, Moldova, and the Western Balkans into the EU. Democracy in the EU is under attack, and we, the EU, need more and better tools to combat misinformation. To this end, we shall establish the European Centre for Democratic Resilience. We shall build AI gigafactories, not just mega, gigafactories, train and develop the new generation of artificial intelligence, and achieve European technological sovereignty. And, maybe relax some visa rules to try and convince people to come to Europe. Finally, some condemnation on Israel. I mean, they're crazy, right? Crazy.
Yeah.
I thought the EU was an economic political project. What's all this about drones and security and Ukraine and Moldova? Is Ukraine and Moldova in the European Union? I don't think so. I don't think. Putin put out a statement the past week. He said, we've never objected in the past to Ukraine joining the European Union. What we cannot allow is them joining any Western-aligned military, security, and anything of those arrangements. That's absolutely out of the question. Now, the EU, it seems, especially based on that State of the Union, that doesn't read to me like an economic, political, super project. It reads to me like a military bloc, military political. It's just integration, and very against Russia, especially. What do you need a drone wall in the Baltics for? the trade between Finland and Russia is slowed to a crawl. Well, why? Finland said, "All right, well, we're going to join. Yeah, we're going to join NATO." Why? You were neutral, out of the way. The Finlandization was a term in geopolitical international security relations. They're shooting themselves in the foot. That's the European Union. Do you have any idea? We're talking about the collapse of empires. How did the USSR collapse?
Something collapsed due to overspending in military budgets and a lack. They had some droughts and different types of ecological issues as well, as a result of poor planning and poor policy and ineffective leadership. Also, the geriatricness of the leadership class, aging population, average age of the committee, so to speak, because they didn't really have
it was a democracy. It was as democratic as the European Union.
Oh yeah, of course. The unelected,
maybe more.
Basically. Yeah. So the unelected committee was, I think, besides Gorbachev, was average age was 65 to 70 years old, and it's not much dissimilar from the United States and even parts of the European Union. So and also Russia currently today with Putin and Medvedev, and China under Xi Jinping. So I mean, like I said, leadership today is old. And there was I forget the guy's name. He's a Chinese professor, a Canadian Chinese professor that predicted the Iranian conflict. I forget his name, but I'm sure you guys know it. He talked about this as well, that I brought up, and he's obviously broke it down as well. He broke it down a lot better than
Is his name Jiang Shuiqin?
Yes, that's him. Yeah, he studied at Yale undergrad. But he knows his stuff, man. He talks about exactly the same stuff that we talk about, or I talk about, and on here and in the Telegram group. So we definitely see eye to eye, and he uses historical data and historical analysis like I do to predict future things. So basically understanding the past so you can make predictions in the future and understand what's going to happen in the future. Yeah.
Oh, he's like a political science professor in Canada, it seems. He has a May 2024 lecture series called Predictive History. And again, his name is Jiang Huiqin. A very articulate, eloquent, accurate assessment of the collapse of the USSR. There's a shorthand. There's someone, it's said that they were minting guns, not butter, or something along those lines. The EU, inflation is out of control in the EU. The energy, if this winter is cold, the EU's really messed up, and we don't have energy security in Europe, because European energy security was underwritten by cheap Russian energy, which they're now building pipelines to China, and it's away from the West because of the Western self-sanctions. But sorry, where are they finding 800 billion euros for the European Defence Union, separate from NATO, which NATO, they all got to spend 5% on defence? What is going on here? Then you've got the Trump EU trade deal, which, as far as I can tell, was a diktat. These are the terms, you're going to agree. And von der Leyen said, yes, sir. Yes, Daddy Trump. Yeah, sick. Absolutely sick. This is the state of Western leadership. And it's that Western leadership that translates down into policy, which translate in that policy has a subversive ethnographic trend there, as well as not only that, it's not just undermining to the individual, it is targeting the individual. On my Substack, Correct. Rising to Liberty Substack, links in my Telegram channel, I recently put out an article, a 7,000 whatever word article on how the state is antithetical to individual sovereignty, how it over the past 150 years has taken thriving communities and societies and chipped away, pulling all of that into its own power center, designed to suppress, subvert, keep down your sovereignty, your ability, the community, the church, the society, because all of these decentralized centers of power are perceived as a rival cell of power. They're not within the state central bureaucracy, and they want you dependent. They want you atomized. They want you powerless. They want you despondent. And then, so is the American empire crumbling? They're attacking you. They're attacking you on an individual level, on a system level, on a policy level, on an imperial level. We talked about this a lot in the last episode, how I discussed that Lenin's conception of Western imperialism was so exploitative. They're going to exploit the third world and give the benefits to its citizens. And I said, I'm not critiquing them out as 100 years ago. I mean, lots of critiques. But on this point, I'm not critiquing his theory. It was 100 years ago. But they're way more evil than that, because they lost their ability to really exploit the third world as they wanted to. So now they just exploit their own people and subvert their own people. And it's just so much of it is sick. Exactly. What can you do? You got to start with you, start with your community, build up, social networks, true networks, friends, people, being able to do things with your hands, being sovereign, being autonomous away from system dependency. The enemy is the system. The enemy is techno-industrialism. The enemy is the state and the government.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, like I said, to the final issue that's going on is the Qatar-Israeli recent issue. I think we talked about it a little bit. Yeah, exactly. What's your take on what's going on with that particular?
We did touch on it at the beginning. I think that the Israelis are zealous warmongers. Yeah. What are they doing? But they did the same thing when it comes to when they bombed the Iranian embassy in Damascus 3 years ago. I mean, that they're completely unhinged. They don't care about law and norms and perspective. They care only about not just raw power, but they don't have the raw power. They couldn't defeat Iran. They got they got seriously wounded in that 12-day hot conflict. I again, my understanding of their conception is we're at war. We need to keep pushing for war. We want the war, which I think is not great. But maybe they're right there. Maybe there is no diplomatic way to solve it. Do I think the right thing to do is to just shoot missiles at Qatar, especially, allegedly without US approval? And, again, is that tail wagging the dog, or is that just what they're telling us? Allegedly, here's the thing, Qasem Soleimani, right? They took him out. The Iranian embassy, they took it out. the leadership of Hezbollah, they took it out. These things, you can criticize them, but they're effective. Here, allegedly, it appears they failed. It's still early. We don't have all the details, but allegedly, what I'm hearing reported from a place called, I think, N12, which is an Israeli media source. Allegedly, the strike on Hamas negotiation room in Doha, Qatar, failed because Hamas leaders left to pray, leaving their phones behind, making Israeli intelligence think they were still inside. I've seen a picture of one of the leaders still alive in a hospital, So there was a strike. Some people may be dead. It doesn't seem to be effective. And even if it was effective, I'm not going to say I support it. It doesn't seem right to me. I do believe that this Israeli government is, we talk about how evil the Iranian government is. They're trying to get nuclear weapons. They're unhinged. They have no care for international law or international terrorists. You say, Israel? And again, I don't hate the state of Israel. I hate the government and the state of Israel.
Yeah, I don't blame you. So the reality is that, like, at the end of the day, and like I said, this will be my closing remarks regarding the current topic. Is America in decline? Are we in dystopian type society at this point? And basically, the central claim: a global collapse is happening now. Further collapse is expected in 2025 and in 2026, as I've been predicting over the last several years, up to 2014 when I started doing real thinking and research in this particular type of topic. Actually, as early as 14 years old. I'm 42 now. Since I was 14 years old, I had the understanding that empires fail and die, and that I had told my teachers and the different people that I believe America will collapse one day in my lifetime. We're in this time now, 30 years later. So the two possible paths that I've also discussed earlier in the podcast: the crash. There will be an economic correction because there's too much money in the system right now. Fiat
financial capital.
Correct. And a lot of this is the Keynesian type theory that's involved in this, and a lot of economists that are on YouTube that they're like, oh, we don't believe them, but these are academics and they've done the research, and they basically say that these boom and bust cycles under fiat currency is a result of too much cash in the system, QE, and all of this different things, the speculation, and that generally banks issue loans and money, and in order to correct that, it's not through lowering interest rates or increasing interest rates. It's
not through manipulating interest rates. The boom bust cycle. The boom bust cycle is a result of central bank manipulation of the economy, distorting real prices, creating systems, periods of overinvestment, and then that leads to malinvestment, bad investment, zombie corporations, and mandates of correction. So this boom bust cycle, it's not just QE, it's just printing money. Every time the government does something, it is distorting the market, and that's what causes most of the problems.
Correct. So the reality is that these bust cycles, like 08 recession, the difference between the 08 recession and then 29 crash, and there was a crash in the 80s as well, is that basically when these busts happen, when these bubbles burst, they eliminate cash out of the marketplace. So in 2008, I think it was $17 trillion just in the United States alone was erased from the economy. We've regained not all of that, but we've regained, we're still haven't caught up to that. So the reality is that inflation has skyrocketed, and I don't think we're ever going to get to that bubble for a long time that we've lost. Because if we ever get to that level, it's probably going to be the end of capitalism as we know it. But we're going to get close, I'm pretty sure, but it's going to take a lot longer than it has. I don't think we've recovered more than 30%. I mean, basically state and corporate powers have merged. So as I predicted, like by the fall here in the next couple of months, September, October, November, we may see a massive correction. We already saw 30% earlier in the year, so we only need another 30% correction to meet that 60 to 7% correction in the market. It may happen, it may not. If it doesn't happen, A prolonged QE inflation and Weimar Republic style erosion of the middle class will occur into 2026 through 2030 before the ending of the United States empire as it crumbles, and possibly a full out uh, World War III, like an actual physical World War III between different superpowers with a lot of weapons and things. But it's going to take time to build that up. What we're seeing right now in Europe and America and Russia and other countries. Mechanisms: overabundance of fiat cash, banks remove liquidity, deflationary bust, parallel to 1929 and 2008 crash. The difference between 29 and 28 and '08 crash is that in 29 the currency was backed by gold, and 2008 it's backed by nothing. So it is what it is. They haven't covered the losses. We haven't recovered the losses that we lost from the fiat that was erased from the economy, the capital gains and all this. But in 29, they paid it through gold, and that's why they took us off the gold standard. In 2008 reference, like I said, 17 trillion was removed from the marketplace. Fiat versus gold. Fiat era makes collapses more abrupt. Gold historically backs losses. Predictions and outcomes: repeated bust cycles will create crashes in the future, and it's imminent. Middle class will continue to erode if like I said, it is what it is. You're going to see the huge disparity between the super elite and the poor, and this is what I'm talking about with are we headed towards a dystopian future of a technocracy similar to what you saw in 20, in like Blade Runner, for instance, other types of dystopian societies, 1984, Brave New World, etc., so on and so forth. You're going to have super elites that will control technologies and information. And then, like I said, it is what it is. Robot girlfriends, cats and dogs living together, so on and so forth.
There's a great picture of like a roundabout, 4 exits. One is 1984, one is Brave New World, one, all of these dystopias. And it says, you're here in the middle, in between all of them.
Yeah, right now I'm actually to my my students. We're reading the Brave New World, so it's going to be very interesting. And I might actually post some of that in the locals channel for you guys. I'm going to record it, my lecture. I will make sure that it's okay for me to repost it in locals. I think it'll be okay. And that's just extra stuff for you guys that subscribe to locals. Like I said, Rumble 3 gets you $3 off your first month's membership dues. It's only $4 a month, dude. It's like it's like half the cost of a cup of coffee at Starbucks. Anyway, so I'm gonna finish the rest of my conclusions here because we're heading on the hour, and then you can close for us, Adam. So economic schools and skepticism. We talked about the mix of Keynesian defenders and alternative economists that have broken down. Some argue for stagflations, others foresee deeper de-evolution in the economy. Geopolitical trajectory: decline of American empire, de-evolution of the U.S. influence, and possible power vacuum and long-term instability, which I've covered over before. In the colonial empire angle, historical patterns of imperial rise and fall, post-World War II decolonization of Great Britain, leading to a weaker global hegemony. And this is what we're seeing in the United States today at this current time, and hashtag collapse 2025. Current leadership impact, which we also discussed: failure of leadership, which is leading to the rise in crime we saw in 1970s under the Carter administration, when they brought a huge influx of people from the third world under new immigration policies, and the crime rate went up. There were embargoes because of Middle Eastern oil embargoes from, obviously, the current conflict that has just been repeated in 2025 or 2024 to 2025. So yeah, this global leadership impact, perceived long-term effects of U.S. policies, i.e. aid cuts under Trump, which also occurred, I think prior, or it's because it was Kennedy's the one that started USAID and Peace Corps and all of this, and he was the one that started really heavily getting into that through soft power. And then I believe when Reagan came in, he started cutting a lot of that aid as well, and that was Carter was kind of the further on with that, and then Nixon as well. Nixon cut off a lot of aid, from what I understand. So we're seeing a lot of parallels between the 70s and the 2020, the mid 2020s under leadership. So, like I said, global influence and domestic stability. So the end state vision, or end of state vision, dystopian future with high tech and high uncertainty, potential dark ages. Dark ages being what happened during the dark ages in the medieval period. There is a huge disparity between the super rich and the super poor, the vagabonds and the serfs. There was a lot of power unless you were a duke or of nobility class, and this perceived into the Renaissance and the Victorian era, where there was more stability, and there was a huge like I said, there was a huge middle class that arose within the caste system. Also, what's going to be discussed in the Brave New World. If I'm able to actually read podcasts or re-upload that, you guys will get that information. So there's a potential dark ages despite technological advances. So technology will probably continue to advance, and I often say that technologies see leaps and bounds during times of civil unrest or hard times, because people have more time to think and less time to basically work, because you're in economic disparity, and basically hard men create good times. So those hard men are going to be thinking of viable solutions for their difficulties in life. And that's why during the Dark Ages, we saw huge advancements as well during World War II, during World War I, World War II with the advancement of the nuclear, the splitting of the atom, jet propulsion, rocketry, all of this wonderful stuff that we use today. The internet started out of World War II towards the end into the Cold War. And these different wars are competition with transformational leadership that arose during these times. And right now, there's no real division. I mean, we're all trading with each other in this global homo agenda, and that's why there's just a lack of leadership, because we're in very good times right now, even though we're heading dystopia type era, because women don't want to marry men don't want to marry women, people don't want to have kids, the genders hate each other. We have aging geriatric leadership and everything that we basically discuss on the podcast and the Telegram group. Links in the description. Join my locals, join Adam's locals, member Liberty Rising group, and mine is the T Club. That's all I'm going to say for my closing argument. We're at hour 6 minutes. Take it away, Adam, and we'll conclude.
The world is going to shit. The world's always going to shit. Again, are we in the collapse? Yes. For example, take the Queen of England. You take her at the beginning of her reign, take her at the end of the reign. People, they may have said 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. Yeah, some things are going downhill. But, is it really going to hell in a handbasket? You take the snapshot at the end, you take the snapshot at the beginning, and you say, yes, actually, yes, things have been a disaster. This is a collapse. If you showed someone today, 50 plus years ago, they would say, what a dystopian future. So what are the economics of dystopian future? Exactly what's going on. Collapse is occurring. We are enduring collapse. What can you do about it? You have to reject their system. You have to build yourself. You have to be self-reliant. What Professor talks about with Sigma leadership. Disconnect from their dependency. Build yourself up. I know it's difficult. I mean, I'm struggling through self-sufficiency presently, and we all struggle through a lot. But this is what we must strive towards. Especially set a plan. 4 years, 5 years. How where are you going to be? How are you going to be positioned so that you can be independent, not dependent on the system, and sovereign, right? Individual sovereignty. So even though the world is going to crap, you're not going to be stabbed to death brutally by one of the system's favorite little criminal animals who's been let out of prison 14 times for violent offenses. I mean, absolutely terrible story. So look, this week it's been terrible. It's been more of the same. Don't black pill, red pill. If you can, white pill. If you're doing well for yourself, good. get yourself independent financially, economically, socially, politically, right? Screw politics, screw their systems, screw everything that they try and impose against you. Break free of the programming, the brainwashing, the industrio-technical system. Praise be Ted. Oh, I can't say his name, YouTube censorship. Join us on Telegram, locals, all our links. Thank you for listening. It's been a great episode. See you next week.
Take care, guys.
Heavenly conniptions, masked in contempt for the walls of this prison of our own making, temptations and deceptions that fill our hearts with sadness while burdening us with sin, those sins taking a lifetime to burn through, yet still remain as the fat upon our souls is left for our offspring to endure. That sin, in our ever so ignorance, has locked them in chains for which they may never break through, and yet the masses are unshaken in their created dystopia and continue sacrificing our freedoms for their comfort, and yet the gluttony remains in an ever so ghostly nightmare that we cannot wake from, for the wickedness is systemic and prevalent through and through. Yet the Sigma leader moves on, silent, focused, and driven